Please join me in welcoming Jill Tipping.
I'm going to have to cut back some of those commitments, eh? Thank you so much, Kathy, and everyone here at BCIT. I'm so honored to join you all today for what must be one of the most important days of your lives. It's our chance as a community to share with you 4 words. Congratulations, you did it. I love days like today, when we can pause and reflect on what we've accomplished and on the path ahead, a path of limitless possibilities. And in our short time together, I'm going to share some stories about my family, about my education, and about my career in the tech sector. And I want to leave you with 3 ideas. Simple ideas: what, who, and why. So let's start with what. Not so long ago, I was where you are today. I was sitting in the audience of a large amphitheater, waiting for all the old people on stage to get on with it, to hand over the proof that I had completed my education, to let me get on with my life and my future. And I've learned a lot in the life I've led since then. I learned that my diploma and a degree is really the starting gate, not the finish line, and that the pursuit of knowledge worth knowing takes a lifetime. And I've learned how lucky we are. You know, in the grand sweep of human history, publicly accessible higher education is a relatively recent innovation. The first polytechnics started with the Industrial Revolution in the 19th century, and it was the demands of the rapidly growing industrial economies after World War II that caused an explosion of science and technology education. But it was a revolution in more than education. It was a revolution in realizing human potential. Public education has transformed our economies and our societies more than anything else before or afterwards. And let me tell you what it did for my family. We're from Scotland, we're from Glasgow, and back there, each of my grandparents left school by the ripe old age of 14. Not because they weren't smart, not because they didn't want to study. They loved school and they wanted to stay on. And not because they weren't willing to work hard. They had a lifetime of hard work ahead of them. They left because they had to support their families, their younger siblings, their parents, their grandparents. And it's hard to believe, perhaps, that that was once the limit of the ambition of a bright young person not so very long ago. They didn't complain because it had always been that way. But it changed, and it changed with my parents. As others had done before them, they did well in their exams and found themselves at a good school with excellent teachers, but they had new options available to them. My mother trained as a librarian, and with the explosion in funding for public education, my father was encouraged to apply for the unthinkable, to consider a place at university, the first ever in our family to do so. He graduated in 1966 with a BSc in engineering from Glasgow University, and the trajectory of our family changed forever. Work took him to London and eventually to Canada, and to a quality of life that we take for granted and my grandparents never stopped being entranced by. My 2 sisters and I never doubted we would pursue post-secondary education. In fact, in perhaps an excess of enthusiasm, we each have 2 degrees. We worked hard for those qualifications as you did for yours, and your achievements are your own, and you should be so proud of them, especially today. But never forget that we stand on the shoulders of giants, the families and generations that came before and worked so hard to set us up for success, and the decision made by our society to embrace the world-changing idea of public education. It was once controversial and bold. It caused heated debate and had to be fought for, and it is worth fighting to defend and expand today. We're in the midst of a fourth industrial revolution, with change coming faster than any of the revolutions that came before. But one thing is more important than ever: accessible, relevant education that enables every person in our society to keep up, to unlock their potential throughout their working lives. That's my what advice for you. Put learning at the center of every life, not least your own. But what comes next is actually more important. You must ask yourself not only what, but for who? I like to say you need to find your constituency. These are the people whose support got us to where we are today. Their support helps us carry on and continue and go further. Their good opinion matters most to us. These are the people we aspire to serve, satisfy, and delight. My constituency is a small group. I'm lucky they're all here today. It includes the parents I've already spoken of. It includes my husband, Matt, and my daughter, Veronica, who's 5, and reminds me every day of the power of determination, stamina, and a winning smile, especially when you're negotiating with your mother. And Matt, my husband, well, I have to tell you all that your choice of partner is the most important and influential choice you will make, not only for your life happiness, but for your career success, especially for the women in the audience. Choose well, my friends, choose well. I'm glad I did. And sometimes your constituency can arise unexpectedly, and you must be open to that. Life and happenstance brought me in contact with a young man who's fascinated by how the world works. Business, politics, economics, society, a young man who sees the very best in people and responds to that. He's 10 years old. He happens to have a hearing disability, but that brings with it some learning challenges, but what does that matter? It doesn't define who he is. This young man is defined by his ability, by his capability, by his ambition, and by his good-heartedness. And in that, he has the best of all possible role models in his mother, one of my colleagues. The way Aidan approaches life inspires me, and I often find myself asking, would what I'm doing now impress him? Would it catch his attention? Would it inspire him? Would he approve? His example is one we can all learn from. What matters is who we are, and I encourage you to think about your own constituency, who they are, and why their good opinion matters to you. If you choose your constituency well, they will inspire you to great things. So that's the what and the who. Let's talk a little bit about the why. I built my career in the tech sector because I'm a relentless optimist. The tech sector is driven by a can-do attitude and a belief that ideas can make a real difference in the world. As you know, before I joined BCIT, I spent a decade with Schneider Electric's solar business. It was our job to turn sunlight into electricity. Efficiently, affordably, sustainable, cheaper than electricity off the grid without subsidies. We drove a solar revolution with the power to change the world, and we did it from Burnaby. In fact, we did it from literally just around the corner from here. Changing the world for good was our business model, and that's the business model I see in action every day across the tech sector and in the hearts of the people who work in it. There are companies, large and small, filled with people who are striving to make the world better. The team at One BC Company is using augmented reality to help surgeons practice and plan surgeries before they head into the operating room. It saves the system money and it improves patient outcomes. People at another BC company are helping improve the environment by treating wastewater and then using what's removed to make agricultural fertilizer. In pretty well any sector you can think of, and certainly in the worlds of business and energy, tech is changing the very nature of the work being done and the value being delivered. Soon, every company will be a tech company. Tech helps put the user at the center in government services, banking, and retail. It strengthens our healthcare and our education system. It makes our resource sector sustainable economically and, importantly, environmentally. And all of this innovation builds our economy, our communities, and a better future for all of us. It wasn't easy to decide to leave the magical world of solar, but I found a place where I could have even more of an impact at BC Tech. To solve the problems of the future, we'll need technology and innovation on a scale never before seen, and it will need leadership. Perhaps I'm biased, but I think the world needs more BC. I think the world needs more Canada. Now is our time to lean in and lead the way. There's a reason to be optimistic, and I encourage you to choose your why carefully. Make your passion your work, and your work your passion, and never stop trying to have a positive impact on the world. So as you head off to new horizons and bright, rewarding futures, I wish you three things. Champion the value of learning in every life, not least your own. Find your constituency and let them inspire you to become your very best self. And travel a path that lets you make a difference in your own lives, in the lives around you, in your communities, in your province, and in your country. Thank you.